Chandrashekhar. He is an economist, senior editor, and a policy commentator. We would like to request Mr. G. Chandrashekhar to please come and join us. Mr. Chandrashekhar would be performing the duty of moderation for this next discussion. I would like to request Mr. Khalid Khan, the VP and Head Procurement and Supply Chain, ITC Limited. Mr. Khalid Khan, I invite you to please join the panel. Next is Mr. Simon Arnold. I guess Simon is already with us. Welcome, Simon, to this panel discussion. Now we would like to request Mr. Arnaud Petit to please come forward and join us for the discussion. Mr. Arnaud Petit, Executive Director, International Grains Council. Mr. Simon Arnold, he is the Global Head of Trading and Risk Management, Aria Commodities. Mr. Arnaud Petit. All right, he has also joined us online. Welcome you, sir, for this panel discussion. Mr. Petit is the Executive Director, International Grains Council. And now we would like to invite Mr. Aromal J. Koshi. I request Mr. Aromal J. Koshi. He is the Senior Vice President, Grains, COFCO International India Private Limited. And to complete this panel, I would like to request Mr. Navneet. He is the President of Roller Flour Mills Federation of India. Mr. Navneet. All right, thank you so much. So we have two experts who are available with us online, and two of our experts are available here with the moderator. I over to Mr. G. Chandrashekhar. Sir, over to you. Please take this discussion ahead.
Thank you. How much time do we have for this session? 45 minutes? 45 minutes. Okay, all right, thanks. So it's 3:45. By 4:30 we will conclude this. All right, thank you. It's such a delight for me to be here in this conference, Wheat Product Promotion Society. I've been a part of this for so many years, but in the last 4 or 5 years, I probably lost touch. I'm delighted to be back here. This is a session where we are going to discuss market dynamics and economic strategies. Extraordinarily important in these days, and you know what I mean. Over the last 5 or 6 years, the world has been facing multiple challenges, multiple headwinds, particularly for the commodity market, starting with Trump version number 1 in 2018-19. And then we had in 20 and 21 the pandemic, lockdown, etc., etc. Just as we thought that the pandemic was going away, the Russia-Ukraine war started, and of course we know what happened in the Black Sea region, how shipments were affected, etc. And then we soon had the Israel-Hamas conflict, which is actually going on now. The two wars are going on still. But this is a kind of a huge uncertainty, supply chain disruption, inflation, all that has happened to this world. And that's exactly where this session becomes more important in my view. Very quickly, as a moderator, let me set the turf very clearly. I'm not giving numbers. I have all the numbers here, but let me not mention these numbers. One is this year, 24-25, world wheat trade is down about 10% to 203 million tons. That's the first proposition. It's a three-year low. Second one, we have production fluctuation. A lower production in major exporters like Russia and the European Union. Then you have import shifts, which is that the changes in import demand from China. China is importing lower quantities. And of course, Turkey. And then this is going to impact the global trade volumes. I'm sure someone like Arnold from the IGC is going to dwell at length on these numbers. Then we have geopolitical influences, which is, of course, the Black Sea region as an example. I'm so sorry. Then we have climate impact. Last 4 years, we have had El Nino and La Nina alternating and impacting crop production in some part of the world. I'm so sorry. And therefore, global agriculture markets in general, and certainly wheat market in particular, is facing a lot of headwinds, is facing a lot of challenges, including slowing growth, geopolitical challenges, monetary policy, currency fluctuation, weather aberration, supply chain disruption, trade policy changes, very, very important, and of course the fund play. And a new dimension has now been added with Trump coming in and sorry about this, starting to impose or threaten to impose tariffs. I think the entire commodity space is getting more and more distorted. This is a situation where it is extraordinarily important for market participants, value chain participants to closely examine and even crystal gaze how the markets are going to behave in the short term and in the medium term, and what kind of economic strategies value chain participants have to adopt. We have an absolutely elite panel here to discuss these challenges, which could potentially be opportunities also. Let me start with our very respected Arnaud, Petit, Executive Director of the International Grain Council. Arnaud, welcome to the Wheat Product Promotion Society. We are delighted you are here. You are joining us online, and we'll be happy to hear your presentation. The floor is yours, Arnaud.
Thank you very much, Chandrashekhar, and I would like also to thank all the organizers of the meeting to give us an opportunity to be with you today. And maybe I will share my screen because figures can be sometimes boring, so some graphs help, I would say, to look about what we are looking in terms of wheat market. The first one, I think you see now my slide, and I will turn in just in the slide from the beginning here. So just to tell a quick recap of the 24-25 marketing year, where, as it has been said, so the major exporters had a production decline for successive season, but, and this is what we are seeing at the moment, the Southern Hemisphere autumn has been better than expected, particularly in Argentina and Australia. And this is why I would say today we have a relatively good price of wheat, if we look on the global market, because we don't see any shock in terms of supply. We had a good production in Kazakhstan, but with a low specific weight, meaning not necessarily a wheat really fit for the food purpose. And overall, a strong performance in Near East Asia with larger than average crops in Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. That means less also need of imports. In terms of during production, it touched a 6-year peak, including in sowing gains in US, Canada, and Turkey. So this is partly, I would say, why we have seen a decline on trade in 24-25, because we had some relatively good production in countries which are usually importers. So that's something to take into account, that not necessarily link to the disruptions we have seen during COVID-19 or even during the war in Ukraine. If we look now towards our first forecast production for 25-26, which have been updated last week, what we are expecting is a better production globally. Even maybe a world record at 106 million tons of wheat. And this improvement, I would say, is mainly due to the EU rebound production. And you know, last year EU had a very bad conditions, But so now we are more looking at an average production. So that's really the big change. And if you look on the top producers in EU, in Canada and in India particularly, so you see that there is a good prospect. So definitively we are here looking on a better situation, and where there is a less production or decrease of production is mainly in the Black Sea, in Russia and Ukraine. For Russia, what we are expecting is a decrease of production mainly in central Russia, where the price of wheat is not necessarily the most attractive, where farmers are facing some difficulties in terms of access to plant protection products, and they may shift to more oilseeds production. So we are expecting less spring wheat seeding for this country. And Ukraine, it is a regular trend now, as we see a slow decrease, but a continued decrease on areas of production of wheat, and again towards more spring wheat or cash crops, which could be maize or oilseeds. And if we look about North Africa, also a slight improvement of the production in comparison to last year. So that all of these conditions, I would say, give us an opportunity. I'm going yes quickly. In terms of opportunities of trade would be higher for 25-26. So we expect a production trade increasing by plus 6 million tons in total. And if you look why we are expecting and we are looking about an increased trade is mainly, and that graph is even better, is in Asia. We are expecting a better demand in terms of wheat and wheat product in Asia in comparison to last year. And in that aspect, we see that we expect that Indonesia and other countries, and also maybe a bit China, would import more wheat, would need more wheat to import. So this is why we have a better perspective for this region. And also, we have to bear in mind that during 24-25, Turkey banned some exports in terms of wheat, and now this ban has been lifted, which would help Turkey to come back on the global market and to become more active in terms of export. So definitively, we see here an opportunity for 25-26 to have a better trade opportunities, despite the fact that the consumption will be higher than the production. So that means we will see the need to get access to stocks. And the good news, again, as I was referring to the production side, the good news is the major exporter will have a better production. So that means in terms of supplying the global trade, there will be an easier situation that we had faced last year when, for example, EU had much lower surplus for trade available for the global market. So definitively, we see that context, I would say, of the main elements of the grains market more balance. And two topics I would like to add on this, which can maybe balance a bit the situation or put some cloud, I would say, in one way to the grain trade, as it has been mentioned by Mr. Chandrashekhar, exchange rate. We have seen since the beginning of the year, the dollar exchange rate went down by 9%, which definitively provides some relief for net importing country. I'm thinking particularly for Sub-Saharan Africa, which is very sensitive to price movement and the cost of trade, to finance its trade. So that's something to look at, how the dollar will continue to react. Will it continue to decrease, or it might went up if there is some change in terms of policy? And the second point is interest rate. We were all looking about potentially decrease of interest rate, and all this uncertainty around trade policies around the globe might impact that flow. We have seen that in US we might expect maybe not quickly a new interest rate cut when where in EU, for example, we are in a totally different tone. So this is why that's something also to look, and might change a bit also that forecast is how the interest rate will continue to evolve during the marketing year 25-26. In terms of India particularly, Here, we just wanted to put a slide and to remind it that for India, we're expecting a rebound on wheat consumption in comparison to the last marketing year. So which means for 25-26, consumption and production will be balanced. So that's a good news, I would say, first of all. And the second, which means stocks are not necessarily on a higher trend, so which is very important in terms of balancing the market and to have a domestic price. And the second point also I would like to highlight is about import-export. Trade is in India is operating very strong constraints. We know that for export, it is only to government. There is a ban, but with some exemptions. And for import, the 40% import duty in place is also, I would say, a limitation for trade to capture some market movement. So that's really something we have seen, which we expect indeed not necessarily a change in position of India on the global market. But if we look on broader than just wheat, if we take as a staple food, meaning wheat, rice, and pulses, indeed we tend to see an increase of the stocks, of global stocks. And that's something to look at in the marketing year 25-26, is how the balance will be done between rice and wheat, particularly because we expect a better production of rice for 25-26. Which can be a balance between the two outlets and how the consumer will react and buy more rice or continue to buy wheat. That's something to look at in the near future. I will maybe stop here my presentation because I understood that the format is more about discussion, and I will be very happy to continue the discussion with all my fellow panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnaud, for this wonderful presentation. You have given us what I would call a helicopter view of the global wheat market. Thank you very much. Something to cheer about and something to worry about. The thing to cheer about I see from your numbers is that probably for the first time, global wheat output is going to touch 800 million tons, which is a record. And I think that's great news. But at the same time, for 25-26, you projected that our consumption will exceed our production, which will lead to tightening of stocks. That's a bullish signal for the market, really speaking, which is okay. What can we do? That's the situation. From an Indian perspective, of course, you have taken the government numbers. Last year was 113 million, this year is 115 million, etc. Although I have my own view, I think these government numbers are overstated by at least 10 million tons, if not 12 million tons. But that's another story. But I also saw a small print saying India may import small quantities in 25-26. Again, of course, it's left to the wisdom of our panelists here. They will, I'm sure, talk about it. But my own sense is in the last 2 years, there were occasions when we could have imported, we ought to have imported, but we still managed to tide over the situation. But we managed to tide over the situation because the consumers paid a heavy price for their wheat. But anyway, be that as it may, let's see what the policy of the government of India is going to be from an import perspective. But no, thank you very much. Wonderful. Please stay back if it's possible. I'm not sure if your time permits, but we have a couple of more presentations at least. I'm now going to invite another star khiladi of this Maidan, which is Khalid Khan from ITC. He has a presentation, and I'm sure he is going to take us through various numbers and his own perspective of what kind of strategies that value chain participants must adopt to keep afloat in this market full of challenges. Come, Khalid.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chandrashekhar, I am truly humbled by the introduction you gave about me. it's really great to be here in yet another wonderful WPPS event. It's always good to be here. Thanks to Ajay ji, Adi ji, the entire WPPS team. You have really taken this WPPS events from in the last 18 years to the stage where it's really feel good to be a part of this event. One is TEFLAs, and you are also coming in the same league of TEFLAs. It's really good to see the improvements. So while the presentation is being set, my presentation will be in two parts. The first part will be answering the day-to-day questions. As soon as you enter into such conference, generally people ask, "Sir, kya lagta hai? Gehu mein kya hoga?" So this is a short-term response which we all must be looking for. So first 5-6 slides will be answering that short-term response to the basic question, which is in everyone's mind. Sir, kya lagta hai is baar gehu mein kya hoga? Second set will be answering a long-term challenge which is there in front of all of us, in front of the industry, that how do we really ensure that we are able to achieve a production of 110 plus million ton, which is extremely important for a country like India, where food security is the biggest concern. Even though why we are comfortable so far, because rice stocks are very, very comfortable. In fact, the rice stocks are 63 million tons as against a 12 million tons buffer. So we have 5 times. But as far as wheat is concerned, we are just trying to make up, and we are trying to listen the topic seeds of change, the wheat market trends and the sustainable solutions in India. So wheat market trends is the first part of the presentation, and the next part is more from the point of view of a sustainable solution, which as an industry we are looking for. So the first part will be the wheat trade dynamics, as I explained, wherein I will shortly touch upon the global wheat scenario, although Arnold has made my task very easy. I will more dwell upon the Indian wheat scenario, and thereafter the development of new varieties of wheat, although we did talk about the new varieties of wheat at length in the first session, but let me be focused on the kind of work that we as an organization have done and what the government has been doing. To begin with, so there's a macro framework which is required to analyze the wheat markets. One is on the supply side and on the demand side. There are multiple factors. The first and the foremost are the weather variables, which are important during the key growth stages. The extreme climate events that we all know, it's El Nino, heat waves, floods, etc. Recently we have seen very severe rains affect other wheat marketable surplus and the private trade arrivals and the buying. We were all talking about seeds. Yes, the availability of high quality seeds in each and every pocket where the wheat is grown is important. The sowing acreages, the yields, productivity, seed replacement rate is an important aspect which we normally tend to forget. Substitute crops. We are facing this challenge between oil seeds and wheat, between pulses and wheat, between wheat and maize. We are going to see these kind of the competition between the crops for the acreages. On the demand side, government policies and interventions, the government stock, the government buying plan, how much they are planning to buy, the inflation control measures, we have all witnessed all these events in the recent past. The international wheat price indexes, the wheat flour demand and consumption, bakery product consumption, we are seeing a very good increase in the consumption of the bakery products over the years, and we are going to see much of an increase going forward as well. Just a snapshot, as Arnold was talking about, this is just a comparison. What is happening? Argentina and Australia are going to see larger crops, but at the same time, EU and Russia are going to see a drop. Overall, a very, very balanced kind of a S&D. Wheat production is going to touch roughly around 800 million tons. The only difference is Arnold was presenting IGC numbers. These are more of USDA numbers. That's why they are slightly more conservative. Overall, consumption is increasing, but globally, we are not likely to be too much concerned about the overall scenario. Overall scenario is quite balanced. So where is the excitement? Excitement is here in India, back in our country. That is where we need to be careful. So if you look at the wheat industry construct, this is just a flow chart which really will answer many more questions which we always have or would want to ask. So the wheat production, our estimate is 102 as compared to 95 million tons last year. About 30% is retained by farmers for the self-consumption and for the sowing. 72 is the marketable surplus. Then there's the government buying, which we are estimating to be close to 30 million tons this year. It again flows back to the overall supply through the various schemes. So available for private trade will be this 43 and another 29. So that leaves around total 72 million tons. Maida consumption, the wheat for maida consumption is around 35 million tons. Again, these are basis a lot of surveys and the research work that has been done by the industry. For atta, it is 25 million tons. If you look at maida, institutional demand is 10 million tons. In wheat terms, 24 is for wholesale segment, and another 1 million ton is for the QSR segment. Coming to atta, branded is around 5 million tons, and unbranded is around 20 million tons. This unbranded can further be classified into 10 million tons, which is household wheat, and another 10 million tons of unbranded loose. Now, we should not forget that even the wheat which is being retained by the farmers, that is also being consumed in the form of atta, not as maida. So overall, total requirement of wheat for atta will be this 25, which is non-farmer, and another 25 by the farmer. So that is around 48 to 50 million tons. 35 is wheat for maida. The balance 5 million tons which was retained by the farmer, 3 to 4 million tons which will be for the seeding purpose, and another 1 to 2 million tons will be for the feed purpose. Total, what we estimate, the total consumption of wheat in India is close to 90 million tons. So if we produce 100 or 100 plus million ton, we are in a comfortable situation. These are the top 5 factors which will govern the wheat market. Every year, these are the same factors, the only values change. Wheat MSP this year has been increased by 6.6% to 24,250. MP and bonus, we have seen the bonuses, hefty bonuses in fact, much more than the increase in the basic increase in the MSP. Government opening stock, government has done a splendid job from 7.5 million tons last year and managing the situation by releasing only 3 million tons in OMSS. They have been able to open their books with 12 million tons. Government procurement, we are estimating 28 to 30 million tons. We might see a situation of stock limits again, but fingers crossed. OMSS, yes, will be there to support the industry. And import duty remains at 44%, which we believe that will continue to be there at least for 1 more year. So how the 102 million tons, which is our estimate, can be classified across various states. Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, wherever the wheat crop arrival started early, wherever the impact of heat waves was not felt by the wheat crop, we have seen an increase of 7 to 8% in the yields. Coupled with the slight increase in area of wheat, we are seeing a good increase in production. Contrary, Bihar and UP, they have seen a slight decrease of 1% and 6% in the yields. Overall, we are estimating 102 million tons of production, which is around 7 to 8% higher than last year. Looking at S&D, so the second last column from the right, 95 million ton we started with, government bought 26.6, 18.2 was the actual offtake in PDS, 3 million in OMSS, 1 million in Bharat Atta. We ended up at 11.8. 11.8 becomes the opening number for this year as on 1st of April. We estimate government buying to be close to 29-30 million tons. Marketable surplus for the private trade is going to be low because government is going to be buying more. 19 million tons, just 5% increase in the PDS offtake. We are again estimating 3 million tons in OMSS, the reason being that government knows that the private players are having sufficient wheat in their hands, so there might not be a requirement of releasing too much wheat in OMSS unless and until a situation becomes that the price starts increasing. We estimate And this is a golden chance and golden year for government to again take up their buffer to 17-18 million tons, which should be a comfortable number if the census has to happen this year after 2011. The buffer norm should be at least 13 to 14 million tons, and for that 17.6 million tons will be a safe number for government to work with. Overall, between wheat and rice, the situation is extremely comfortable. So I want you to look at the 2020-21 numbers, wherein the total stock of rice and wheat was close to 77-74 million tons. So these 77-74 million tons helped the government of India to manage the COVID situation by releasing free wheat and rice. They released 100 million tons of wheat and rice over and above the PDS requirement through PMGKY. So slowly we have reached to that similar number, and we should, as a country, with the population being so much, we need to have close to 73-74 million tons of wheat and rice put together. Some of the critical factors to watch going forward. We were discussing the climate and crop factors. We have seen the impact of rains. Everything was looking very good till the rains and thunderstorms have impacted the crop quality and the production. The progress of monsoon and rainfall distribution, Somnath sir spoke about this. We should not be looking at the overall weighted average number. We should be looking at the spatial and the temporal distribution patterns. The pace of Rabi rice procurement, we will have to see 10 million tons government will be buying during April to June. Kharif sowing, which will be an outcome of after the monsoon, we will come to know the rice production. The climate situation across all major wheat and rice producing nations. The climate change is a demon not only for India, but also for the other countries like all the rice producing countries like Thailand, like Vietnam, and even for wheat, the countries. Pakistan is going to import wheat. They are our neighbors. We are lucky and fortunate that we are not going to expect any imports, but Pakistan is definitely going to import wheat this year. The wheat markets in Russia and Australia. Australia, this year's crop was good, which they harvested in November and December. The next year's crop is going to be low. The dryness concerns still persist in Australia. Changes in ethanol policy, we are seeing an increasing diversion even yesterday. There is a number of 1.1 million ton of rice being diverted to ethanol, which reduces the pressure on maize, but changes the equation of wheat and rice put together. The geopolitical situation, global tariffs, trade bloc dynamics. There can be changes in OMS's policy. I was talking to someone, he was saying that there might be a situation where government doesn't release anything in OMSs. If the private industry is self-sufficient with so much wheat in their hands, will there be a need for OMSs? The stock limits. Chances are that the stock limits might not get imposed if the government is able to buy 29-30 million tons. The PDS allocations, we are going to see a shift across the states. So far, the wheat consumption states like Gujarat, MP, Maharashtra, and Rajasthan were being given less of wheat. Now more of wheat needs to be given to them. We should not forget there are elections in Bihar in November. There will be a pressure, inflation, government will definitely try to keep an eye on. So these were some of the slides which tried to answer the first question which everyone asks these days when the wheat season is going on, kya lagta hai? Let's move on to the future. Where should we be more focusing on if we have solved this year's problems? These are some of the newspaper cuttings which we have been seeing over the last 4-5 years. Situation is not so comfortable as far as India is concerned, and the impact of climate change we have seen in the last 2 years. This year the crop is looking good. Last 2 years, the heat waves did create a problem. So India is amongst the countries most vulnerable to climate change. They are highly dependent on agriculture as an economy. 70% of rural households, they depend on the agri sector for their livelihoods. By 2050, we will be 1.7 billion people. So we can calculate what will be the requirement of the food, wheat and rice put together for the country to manage the food security. The impacts of higher temperatures, variable precipitation, and extreme weather events They have already been seen in the last 2 years. This year we have just seen in the last couple of weeks what happened in UP and Bihar. So what is the need? The need is to adapt to the strategies to build resilient livelihoods, climate-resistant agriculture, which we are following. Out of these sustainability 2 priorities, if you can see the 12, out of 12, these are the 6 basic priorities in a sustainability focus areas in agriculture. One is the focus on the climate-smart agriculture. A glimpse of that, what we saw in the first session, when the scientists were talking about the climate-resilient varieties. Sustainable agriculture, that is, what is sustainability? Towards the soil conservation. The product sustainability, that is, we need to focus on the sustainability sourcing. That cannot happen without improving the farmer income, which was also being discussed at farm interventions, which are important, is the greenhouse gas reduction, the improved yields of the varieties, resource saving, conservation, and income enhancement for the farmers. This is being done in 3 stages: the climate resilient value chain development, nature positive and biodiversity management, and sustainability livelihood initiatives. And this is being done across the major crops, right from the major oilseeds, cereals, pulses, as well as the plantation crops like coffee, spices, etc. So for wheat, what is required is, the first is the seed treatment, the climate smart and high yielding varieties of wheat, reduction of fertilizer usage, crop residue management, and the preventive care and the weather advisory. So we did a long-term climate study for assessing impact on wheat crop. The results of that have been really eye-openers. We studied the top producers of wheat globally and top exporters into India historically, that is India, Argentina, China, Russia, Canada, Australia, and US. And we did a climate change forecasting mechanism. Basis that, the various risk parsers were created for assessing the impact on wheat crop, right from the phenological stages, the minimum temporal occurrence, yield impact, etc. The results have been that Russia, China, Canada, and Australia, the impact is going to be positive. India, Argentina, and US, in these 3 countries, we are going to see an increasing risk of production decline. India is going to see, over the next 3 to 4 decades, India is going to see an impact of 8.5% drop in the yields. This can only be avoided if we adopt climate resilient and heat resistant varieties at a faster pace. This can be done through this framework of climate smart agriculture. So we, as an organization, are trying to make a beginning, but without the support of the industry, without all of you being aware of this and start working towards it, it will not be possible for India to solve a long-term problem. Otherwise, we will keep getting happier by getting the solution to our question, आगे क्या लगता है? Future अच्छा नहीं लगता है. That is what, unless and until we follow this sustainable framework, and that is what the future is all about for India. These are some of the varieties which were being spoken about. The varieties are being adopted, although we don't agree basis the 60% adoption across India. Our estimate is it's still 30% only. If we are able to reach to 80-90%, the future is good. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Khalid Khan, thank you very much. Detailed presentation, very interesting facts and observations and numbers. I have 2 quick observations. One, I feel vindicated seeing your production numbers for the last 2 years. Right? Give my forecast and very closely matches with my forecast, your production numbers. I feel vindicated. Number 2, your forecast of FCI procurement is 28 or 29 million ton. My own sense is it will not cross 25 million ton. That's my view. Although I have no trading interest. Let me make it very clear. Third quick point, India is a tropical nation. All tropical nations around the world are a lot more vulnerable to the adverse consequences of climate change. This is something we need to accept. This is something we have been talking about for the last 15 years. But I suspect we haven't done much. I remember I was part of the National Agriculture Innovation Project of the World Bank and Government of India in 2006, 2007, 2008. We built this particular factor, climate factor, into our report. But anyway, because this is a long-term play. Seed is a long-term play. We can't develop seeds overnight. Anyway, therefore, our vulnerability is something we need to take on board and invest more, as some of the research scientists mentioned. I think we need to run faster to even stay where we are. That's the situation. Having said all this, is Mr. Simon Arnold here of Aria Commodities? Is he online or is he here in person?
No, I am online.
Okay, all right. The floor is yours, Mr. Simon Arnold.
Okay, I'm going to ask all my colleagues to put up on the screen a supply and demand chart. I'd first of all like to thank you all for our invitation to join. It's a pleasure. Sorry we can't be there in person. Now we've already seen plenty of figures. It's not very easy to go through each table in a limited amount of time. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to explain to you how, as a global trading company in grain, we would look at these figures and what we would decide from it. So if we we'll put a table up in front of you with highlights on some numbers. I'm not going to go into each number on production and consumption because it'll take too long. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you how we use those numbers and what we use the supply and demand for. It's very important to understand that a supply and demand is a working document that's changing almost daily, and therefore it's not something you can take home and stick on your desk and keep looking at it for reference. What you need to be doing is each time there is news coming in various articles about production or consumption, politically, as we've been given examples of foreign exchange and interest rates, how that is going to affect that table that is going to bring you to the conclusions that you want to arrive at. Now, this is our one table, so that you're not going to be bombarded by figures. But I want you to remember that what we're looking for is where are the weaknesses, where are the numbers that are likely to change. We have taken a USDA table and we've compared it with our own information, our own numbers. It comes from our own expertise, knowledge, experience. You will see some differences here. That's not important. What's important is to decide what you're trying to get to. What's the conclusion? So this won't take very long, but it's very relevant. When you're doing a table such as this, first of all, you've got to get all the numbers together. You need something to compare it to. You can see the ones that are in highlights are, for the most part, major exporters from the areas actually that have already been touched on by Arnaud at the IGC. But what you'll see are some significant differences, okay? And those differences culminate in us arriving at what we want to know, which is the stock figure at the end of the year. Because I consider that it's very early to be forecasting North Hemisphere new crop at this stage. You'll see that there's a small slide afterwards. So if we want to understand how new crop supply is going to be affected in the forthcoming year, first we need to know what's going to happen to our stocks this year. And as you can see from this table, you will see from a conclusion that if we're using the USDA's export number of 186, but we think there's only 176 available, then in theory, we should be increasing stocks, but we're not, because one thing that people have not been discussing too much is domestic consumption in those exporters rather than the consumption of international destinations. Now, we can go through some more questions when people are asking questions. This table will be available for you, but I want to switch now to what looks like our forecast for an explanation of what we've changed in these figures. Can you put it on sector? And also then how we see things coming. So very quickly, in the US, the exports will increase as other origins dry up. Current exports are at 14% of last year. We've got them in at 26 million tonnes. They probably won't do that, considering there's only 6 weeks to go. But what's most likely to happen is we'll see new crop sales increase. But all that means is there's going to be less exports available than we're forecasting and slightly more than what the USDA. The EU imports will not reach the USDA's 11 million tonnes. Therefore, the exports won't reach 26.5 million tonnes and stocks will be lower. We're at about 5.9 million tonnes to date and we're only 8 weeks to go to the end of the season. The USDA production is still showing too high in Russia. The domestic use is way too low and hence the exports are too high. We are at 35.9 to 36 million tonnes up to date. We have only something in the region of weeks to go. Russian exports are tailing off as the domestic prices are too expensive, and we won't make those 44 million tonnes USDA is projecting. We still have a difference in production in Argentina, but we can leave it unchanged at the higher production because we're going to need that for stocks. In Australia, we do have a lower production slightly than some of the other numbers, but once again, it's very difficult to export out of Australia at the moment. The weakness of the dollar actually has strengthened the Australian dollar and it's strengthened domestic prices. So when we talk about the advantage for importers, we mustn't forget that exporters are looking at a difference in price because of the strength of their currency. India, you guys are much more expert than we are, but you will see our numbers. Then if we go down into next year, what we see at the moment is good rains in the west, which will slowly, I beg your pardon, in Australia, we see good rains just happening in the west, but it's still very dry in the south and east of Australia, like New South Wales, that I heard from somebody else. So it's a long way out. We're only in April, harvest is September, October, November. So there's a long way to go, and it's a flag to be watching how those rains develop and get that crop in the ground. We've been looking at the first results in Punjab. I heard that mentioned from the gentleman from STC, how the last weather at the last minute is affecting how we're likely to see the production. In Russia, we've seen both in central Russia and south Russia, drier conditions, warmer temperatures, and a lower snow cover they had this year than in the previous years. And that means that if we don't see the rain event in the next 4 weeks, we will once again be reducing our production estimates, which is the same for Ukraine. In the EU, similar to Russia, the first growth forecasts in France, the quality of the crop is looking lower again, and more surprisingly. So we're going to be looking over the next 4 to 6 weeks at how those crops develop. We still think it's very early, but those are the flag points that we'll be watching out for in the old crop that will be affecting those yellow highlights that you've seen on the supply and demand. And in the new crop, when we do our first balance sheet in the next 8 weeks, I would imagine, that's where the areas we're expecting changes. I'd like to thank you for your attention. I won't take up any more time. I know everybody's in a rush to get these speeches done, but thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your attention. And of course, we're available for any questions.
Oh, thank you very much, Simon Arnold, for this wonderful presentation. We truly appreciate the intellectual input that you brought to this house. I have someone who usually has a last word, and he is Aromal Koshi. He represents COFCO, which is a Chinese company originally, but the Indian arm, and China is the world's largest producer of wheat, as all of us know. So, Aromal, your thoughts on the topic that we are discussing currently.
Hi, good afternoon all, and first of all, let me congratulate WPPS for organizing such a wonderful event, and thanks a lot for Arnaud and Khalid for those, and Simon for those excellent presentations at the beginning of this session, and that basically means that I have nothing to do because all these panelists have basically covered everything that we can think about covering, talking about wheat. See, I mean, at this point of time, I mean, I was just trying to compare, the situation almost 1 year back when we had this WPPS conference in Delhi. And at that point of time, basically, we were all talking about the problems in the crop. I mean, the industry was in general worried about what is the crop number, is it good, bad, problem, and the general consensus was that it was not that great. There was a real worry about prices of wheat going up. And of course, it went up towards the end of the crop season also. I mean, there were a lot of talks about India importing wheat. Of course, there were people on both sides of the dais, and of course, at the end of the day, the government did a wonderful job in micromanaging the wheat crop in the country. I mean, the wheat stocks in the country through imposing the stock limits and managing the OMSs and all those things, and they basically ended up with a closing stock of close to 11.7 million metric ton. So my personal bias at this point of time is that, 1 month back, 1.5 months back, again this year we were talking about problems in the crop. I mean, when the temperatures in the country were basically going up, and probably there were question marks about the yield and stuff like that. And today we are super optimistic about how the crop situation has basically turned out to be. What I feel is that last year, probably we were too pessimistic. I mean, people too much underestimated the crop. And this year, probably we are too optimistic, and people are overestimating the crop. In general, when we are in the lobby, I hear numbers ranging from 5% plus to 10% plus. I mean, big fancy numbers, and I personally do not agree with that. My personal bias is that the crop number this year on an all-India basis could not be more than 2 to 3% plus. So, of course, I take the liberty to disagree with many of the people in the who are there in the audience, as well as many experts who are there. So that is my personal bias, and if the crop number is 2 to 3% plus, and if the demand keeps growing at 2%, let's say, that means when you look at it, the situation from from a macro point of view, I mean, the crop is better and the demand is also growing. So net, the situation in the country probably is going to be not very different from what the situation was there last year. Of course, the crop started a little bit early. The government buying is basically going on well, and of course, they have the comfort level of starting with a better crop, better opening stock estimates, and as Khalid also mentioned, that my estimate also is that the way it is going, they will end up somewhere between 28 to 30 million metric ton, and if they do that, so the thing is that while the overall situation in the country may not change, if you start looking at the micro part, there might be the ownership of the stocks probably is going to change from the private hands into the government hands this time, because the government procurement is going to be much more higher, at least 4 to 5 million metric ton higher than last year. And so at the end of the day, the country is basically going to get dependent on what the government policies are going to be, as far as how the OMS is going to be, and how much whether they are going to give 3 million tons or 5 million tons or 7 million tons or 10 million tons. I mean, we can always debate about that, and at those situations is basically going to play out once we move closer to Q4 Q4. That is what I personally believe. So I will not take much time otherwise. So this is my thoughts at this point of time. Thank you very much, and look, let's hope we have a very great season for everybody, both the farmers, industry, and all the stakeholders in the wheat industry. Thank you very much.
Thanks, your phone. Thanks, Aromal, Koshi, for taking us through and sharing your thoughts. I'm getting very strong signals from the organizers to conclude this event, and therefore I need to conclude, but certainly not before thanking all our elite panelists, starting with, of course, Simon Arnold, Arnaud Petit, of course, Aromal, Koshi, and we, of course, have Khalid Khan for sharing their thoughts. Very interesting, very clearly, there are some differences of opinion with respect to Indian situation from a production perspective, and of course, maybe even a possible procurement numbers, etc. But the real challenge for a country like India is primarily going to come from the climate aberrations. Our acreage under wheat is now stagnating at about 32, 33 million hectares. Don't expect it to go to 35 or 40 million hectares soon. It's not going to happen. And therefore, acreage is stagnating. Our yields are kind of at about 3.2 tons or around. There are, of course, regional variations. And over and above that is the climate variability and climate challenge. I think these are things we need to, I would expect the WPPS to discuss this. What will be our wheat situation 5 years from now? What will it be 10 years from now? We need to build scenarios. And if we have to reach a particular destination 5 years from now or 10 years from now, what kind of resources are required? Human resources requirement, financial resources requirement, technological resources that are required. We need to build scenarios, build scenarios for resource requirements, and then decide where those resources are going to come from, etc. I think it's a big task for the WPPS, and I'm sure, given their exposure to wheat, I'm sure they will have enough. They will internally debate and come up with future projections and action, strategic action plan for the future. If I can be of any help, I'm happy to help the WPPS. With this, let me conclude this session. Thank you very much once again. Good luck. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thanks a ton, Mr. G. Chandrashekhar, for doing a very crisp moderation of this particular panel. And considering the time, we would quickly like to felicitate this whole bunch of excellence on this particular stage. And to do the same, I would like to invite Mr. Sanjay Puri to please come on the stage and help us to felicitate our moderator, Mr. G. Chandrashekhar, and present him with a token of appreciation on behalf of WPPS, the Wheat Product Promotion Society. We are celebrating the excellence of people on the stage in the CEO Conclave 2025. Can we all give a round of applause to this? In the same line, we would like to request Mr. Puri to please felicitate Mr. Khalid Khan. I guess his presentation was loved by the maximum cameras in the room. Everybody was trying to capture the insights which he has brought to this discussion. So this one is for Mr. Khalid Khan. And again, I request Mr. Puri to please do the honor. We extend a great thanks to Mr. Simon Arnold for joining us and sharing his insight with us. At the same time, Arnaud Petit, we would like to say a big thanks to you also for doing the same. And now this one is for Mr. Aromal J. Koshi. And again, Mr. Puri is requested to do the honor. Thank you so very much to the entire panel. I request the entire panel and Mr. Puri to please come forward, join us for a group picture. Thank you. And meanwhile, I request the team to be ready for the next discussion. Thank you so much.